Second. So if you had a preference, I guess that was my main concern.
Oh,
Not,
okay.
not it's not a concern. My
Okay.
question was like, do you have like your own idea of what we should be using?
I gotcha. I do not have a preference, so that's why one of
Okay.
this class used to be restricted to um, I think one method, and I can't remember which one, but then students asked for the ability to practice with different things. So when I talked to
Okay.
the program manager, they said, well, could you make it so that people could do, any path that they want to? So
Yeah.
since I think there's definitely the R predecessor course and Excel. I don't know if there's another course that's Python related, but a lot of students want to learn or practice Python. So I don't have a preference. It's easy for me to grade them either way. They all look the same to me, basically, and I can write in Python, R, and I can use Excel. So it's totally up to the student. If you're using one of those in your job, then I would say that might be the better one to choose, even if it's a little bit harder or has a steeper learning curve. And I can always troubleshoot for you and check your code and stuff. But since I am recording, if you are in Python, the best way to save when you're done with it works a lot like R with the chunks, but they call their chunks kernels, I think. Is that right? And so like all my code is here, and for this one, and then I can run it, uh,
Oh.
you know,
So you can actually run. Okay, so that actually
chunk
makes a
by
lot
chunk.
of sense. I thought it
Yeah.
was like a line item that you had to have like line for each
Uh-uh.
for each line of
No. So
code.
like, yeah, you can put as much as you want in a
Okay.
single chunk,
Okay.
and then you can create a new code, or you can even add markdown in here. Oops, probably shouldn't have done that though, because I don't know. I don't know how to get it back. Code. There we go. Uh, so I don't use see, and you can delete your stuff.
Okay.
Um,
So I got as far as being able to
add.
load the document into Python. And so I was gonna try and do more, but
So I just added up here like a markdown chunk, and then you can make this one code and then do more code. So and then to get it's actually easier, I think, to make Python HTML, because I just go to how did I do it? I just did this, and now I was just an R, so every time I switch between them, I forget. What did I do?
so what I tested this out. So I saved and then I was able to download as the HTML.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, download.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Save and export notebook as HTML.
Oh, I didn't know that. So that's cool too.
And there it is. And then you can see like here's so it literally works exactly like R. So it like in terms of the R chunks.
Yeah.
So like you can see that was the markdown code there. So that's pretty useful. And if you're familiar with R and you got like really used to like last semester making really nice reports and stuff with the markdown and whatever, then you absolutely can keep playing with that, and it will work. It should function exactly the same.
I
So
have
I treat
found,
it's like a level 2 header.
okay, yeah. I have found that like doing stuff in Jupyter, like just doing code and stuff in Jupyter is way more intuitive than the knitting and then the R markdown and stuff like that. So
Yeah, it's less steps for sure.
yeah.
Um, and Python in general, because it's a C-based language, is much more intuitive for I don't want to say like younger as in like age, but for newer programmers, because it functions a lot more like you would expect it to, but R is a better choice if you're doing a lot of like statistical analysis, because there's so many packages in R, like stats packages and image packages. Like there, you can actually use ggplot in Jupyter, by the way, as well. And I think it should function similar, but I think you have to call it in a little bit differently, but same functionality and stuff. So, but anyway, in R, if you learn how to call like a library or a package, a lot of people have already developed the really complicated code so that all you have to do is call the functions from those packages, and then you just need to know how to use the arguments within that function. So you can do like a lot more advanced modeling and stuff. And it's not that you can't do that stuff in Python, but that's when Python becomes harder to use and the code is way less efficient. So that's kind of, like if people are like, well, if Python's easier, why don't we just learn Python? They have kind of their pros and cons, but the way that usually literature will tell you which path to take is like, if you're doing object-oriented programming and you want to automate things, you want to make like really nice packages to do a bunch of tasks or something like that, then Python would be the better choice. If you want to do like heavy analysis, data mining, AI type work or stats, then R would be the better choice. So that's kind of why would one person choose one or the other. But Python is definitely a nice, gentle learning curve. So
yeah, actually, I feel like coming from R to Python, I feel like I passed some sort of like initiation.
I just answered in my doctorate class. It's a Python class. So for some reason, my classes are like lining up with what I'm teaching. But it's they asked us we read this article, and I'll share it in the summary for this week for the office hour summary. If you want to read it, it's only a couple pages long, but it was a research article about R versus Python and how should you approach learning them. And they claim that it's better to learn Python first, but our professor asked us what our opinion of that was. And most of the people who replied in the discussion, which are a lot of them are professors or, it's doctorate, so they're pretty advanced in their field. They all said it really doesn't help to know one versus the other because there's enough differences between the two that like knowing R will trip you up a little bit if you switch from R right to Python, and same with Python if you're coding in Python a lot and then you switch to R. There's just things like, for example, so this is some code for Python, and this is one thing that always tripped me up with Python that you might find. So if I create a variable called data and I shove 1, 2, 3 in it, and then I create a new variable called new data and I copy data into new data, and then I append numbers to the 1 to data, I added 5 to data, and then I added 4 to new data. It doesn't create a copy into the variable. It creates like a mirror of the variable. So when I run it, I get the same. Oh, I guess I better rerun this. There we go. We get the same result. So like in some of our case studies last semester, we created a new variable and copied data into it on purpose so that when we manipulated one of the variables, the integrity of the original data, we would have that to draw from. That doesn't work here. So
Kelly, is that, are you saying that instead of like a mirror, it's almost a link to it, right?
It's, yeah. So, there's so many things going on around me in this house. You could probably hear and like see them in here, but my brain is like not pulling vocabulary very well. But yeah, it creates like they point to the same place.
Okay.
So that's one big thing about Python that is very different from R. Okay, so anyway, I answered your question and then like I went on a whole tangent there, but for
No,
anybody that
it's
wasn't
good.
able to make it, I think it helps to see how to do the HTML and that it basically it's like exactly the same. So
Yeah, no, that's great.
yeah. Kelly, did you have any questions? Did someone else join too? I thought I heard another voice.
I didn't have any questions. I haven't attempted to do the assignment yet. I was trying to make it through the data.
Oh. Oh yeah, okay. You should be good. The data will look familiar if you played with the mushroom data from before.
Yeah.
So hopefully you saved your work. But just it's a little. This isn't anything crazy, and you know it's kind of fun because sometimes people actually create like artistic drawings instead of coding. But
So I was actually going to ask you that, like, did you want us to like actually draw something, or
I gave you the option. So
okay,
so like for example, if you pulled this data into Excel, you can't create a decision tree
yeah,
from the Excel
Right.
file unless you like download some crazy macros and stuff, which
Yeah.
is beyond. My computer's so slow. Okay. Oh, I know why it wants me to update. I don't want to do that. Let's just, no, not today. So I think I started it by creating a pivot table. But basically, if you're not doing R or Python, then you do kind of have to create your own decision tree by hand. But the way to do that is to create pivot tables to show you by like poison which ones are, and so you can basically filter stuff to figure out. Let's see. So I've got poisonous and not poisonous, and if I were gonna do it this way, I would add a calculated field probably or maybe change these fields. I'm not sure. I'd have to play with it for a while, but what the most efficient way to do it would be. But I would do the percentage. So these are sums right now. But if I change them to percent of total, then I could quickly kind of scroll through and see like which factors are gonna be the most telling for sorting into poison or not poison. And then I would kind of go from there. So you have to do a lot of like sorting and filtering if you're gonna do it the Excel way. So that's why I gave that option to do it by hand. And I think the one I started, odor was the most sharp delineation between poisonous or not poisonous. Like if you had any of these odors, the CF and PS or Y, then those are always poisonous. So that was my first like note on my decision tree. And there's no one way to do it. There's no like one right answer. I just wanted like if you're not using R or Python or using Excel, I wanted you to be able to manipulate data well enough to figure something like this out. So and just start playing around with the tools and the idea of a decision tree itself, what it means. So there's some value to doing it this way because you're kind of making your decision tree by hand. So you're getting the process of making it down. Whereas if you do the coding, the process is done in the back behind the scenes with because you've got the library, the functions that you're calling kind of doing all that heavy lifting for you. So when you do it by hand, you get to see the actual like steps involved with making a decision tree, and it kind of put pieces together how that algorithm would work if you were going to code an algorithm like that, for example. So yeah, any of the ways are fine. I've gotten some really fun stuff. I really like this assignment. People do some really cool things. So And I think what I've even taken the results and sent them to, like, someone did like a really nice decision tree that it was like a field guide to mushroom hunting basically. And I sent it to my sister because she forages all the time for mushrooms with her partner, and they're always out there. So I sent it to her. I was like, hey, you could take this with you. I don't, don't die. So
That's funny. Don't die.
yeah. Well, I mean, to me, like the idea of foraging, it's kind of scary, especially when you start looking at this data and you realize like how many mushrooms are poisonous.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Well, yeah,
All
and
right.
it's like poisonous to humans too, right? So one of the things that I just kind of like thought of was after looking at this before, are these toxins also say like to pigs? Because I know pigs like to, like wild pigs, they like to eat mushrooms, and so I wonder if is it just specifically humans that it's poisonous to, or is it like just a toxin in
I know the data set was designed for humans, and it's a legit data set. It's not made up. So if you wanted to very bravely forage for mushrooms, it's valid data. Um, but I don't know because there's a lot of foods that are toxic to pets that are not to humans. So
right?
it would be fun to know what attributes make like well, I don't think aren't truffles a type of mushroom?
Yes.
Yeah, it'd be cool to know what I don't I don't think we get mushroom names in here, do we? No. Um, I wonder if there's a way to classify like truffles instead of by like poisonous,
Or like based
'cause
off description, can you like pair the description and then it'd be like, oh yeah, that's totally a truffle or like a morel or whatever.
yep, yeah, exactly. I mean, there's got to be a way because that's how people find mushrooms. They know that like an oyster mushroom has a certain color and odor and stem and shape, but I thought truffles are notoriously hard to find. So I don't know.
And I think they look like dirt.
It could, yeah, it could just be that. Like they just don't. They're just hard to see, and that's
Yeah.
I don't know enough about
Yeah.
truffles. There is a Planet Money podcast, which is through NPR, that talks about the economics of truffles, though, and it's pretty interesting if you're into that kind of thing. I think it's like 20 minutes long, but it follows this guy around New York for a day, and he basically gets his truffle hookup, and then because they go bad so quickly, he has to run around New York selling his truffles. And the
Wow.
price is so variable because of supply and demand. And if you can't sell them, they go bad. And so then he loses all that potential profit. So anyway, it's a cool podcast.
Wow.
There's
Wow.
a Nicolas Cage movie called Pig that's actually very good. I actually really enjoy it. And it's about like this Michelin starred chef, like the world, like this renowned world, like it would be like if Gordon Ramsay like ran off into the woods and started living in a cabin or whatever. It's
Oh,
actually really cool. If you get a chance to watch it, it's actually good.
yeah, I'll check it out. Well, another team. Rob, Surfing, did you guys have any questions or did you just jump on to listen in?
The only question I had was really kind of, and I think you were into it when I joined, was how are we supposed to submit things and turn things in if we're the difference in like doing Python or something like that? Is that, and was there a difference if we use it in RStudio or if we're using it in the Juniper stuff?
Oh, so if you're using RStudio, same process, you have to knit and a markdown file into HTML. If you're using Python, that's what I was showing. It's super nice because you can open up, I use Jupyter Labs. So you can open up a Jupyter notebook and then you just go to like, what was it? File, save and export notebook as HTML.
Mhm.
And then that's it. You don't have to like install anything or go through multiple steps. So it just spits out a really nice HTML file. So in Python is very similar. So for Python and R, that HTML file is what you want to submit. And then if you're doing Excel, then you would submit your Excel notebook.
And is your expectation when we do the export to HTML, if we're doing the Python, is there a lot of cleanup stuff for that, or how raw do you want to see that?
So it functions exactly like R in terms of you can make a code chunk or a markdown chunk. So clean enough for me to follow what you're doing, or you can comment your code as well. If it's like really simple, you know, then maybe just like a sentence like this code is going to do X. But you know, practice good coding if you're coding, because you don't want to get in the habit of having inefficient or hard to follow code and then end up turning that in at work and, you know, getting people yelling at you for, I can't follow your code. So
Yeah, well, I just know it's very blocky, and you know, so it's like very chunky and
Yeah.
doesn't seem to always flow, you know, especially with putting everything in the boxes. And I haven't seen the output from the Python in the export, but I know when we were working with RStudio, it was kind of like that.
Yeah, it is, and some of that is my fault because I asked you to leave the code there.
Mhm.
So I was going to share my screen, but I decided not to. Now it won't go away. Yeah, so it's definitely going to look like a little bit off because I want the echo on. I want the code and the output to show up. So I totally
Okay.
get that. One way to minimize that is to put as much related code as you can into one chunk. So opt for fewer chunks than like tons of small chunks.
Okay. Okay.
And then it will run a little bit nicer, and you can break up each task. So like maybe the assignment has you doing like 3 tasks. So each task you use like a chunk and you just put all the code into that chunk. And then one way, if you find that it's not running and you're kind of frustrated because you have a lot of code and you don't know where you're debugging, just run it line by line through the chunk to find where it gets tripped up, and then that's the fastest way to debug, as opposed to like if you have smaller chunks, that's the nicer thing, it's easier to debug, right? So I would just, if you get stuck in a large chunk, go line by line. But yeah, and then maybe put like a markdown kernel or chunk or whatever in between each task, and just say like this next code does part 2 of the assignment or whatever. That will help make it a little easier to read.
Was there a function in there to run all of your Python script at once, or do you have to do it line or section by section?
Great question. Let me check. So go back to my Python here. So I think you can run the whole thing. Yeah. So you can select a couple of cells and then run them. And so see, the commands are the same. So if you want to run line by line, you can do Control Enter on each line. If you want to run just the chunk, you can. And interestingly, they call them cells. That's what sorry. You can add, insert, or move your cells around this way. And you can copy one. So if you're writing like 2 functions and they're very similar, that can save you. But to run it, I thought Control Enter was line by line, but I actually think Control Enter in Python it looks like it runs the whole chunk. So that's the chunk. If you want to run everything, you have to kind of run all cells.
Okay, I'll look at that. I haven't spent a lot of time with it, but I wanted to just ask because I didn't spend time to find it yet.
Yeah, I think Jupyter Notebook is pretty easy to use for a GUI. It's not anything crazy. It kind of looks a lot like the RStudio environment, except that you don't have the nice little screen to show you your environment, like all your variables and stuff.
I'll load it up and take a look a little bit more tonight.
Yeah. Kelly, what did you decide to do? I forget. I know you told me, but
I want to do Python.
oh, cool. Okay. It's exciting. How's
I
the
just-
data going for you?
Well, I'm just doing data camp, and it's not very intuitive for me. I keep leaving things out, so it's taking me a while to figure out how things
Oh,
work.
I see. Do you like the interface itself?
In
like the-
data camp, I like it. Yeah. I
Yeah.
haven't really tried it in Python yet.
Okay, yeah, curious to hear if you like that format. DataCamp is unique because it's like you code along with instead of just watching like a video, you have to code as you go. So,
Yeah.
which I think a lot of people appreciate, but it frustrates some people because they get stuck and they can't move on. So. I was trying to show you, and I think I wasn't sharing my screen at the time, for running the kernels. The commands are right here for moving stuff around, copying, adding above or below, and deleting. And then you can either control enter or you can come up here to run. That's what I was talking about before, just for the people that watch this later. If they're like, what is she talking about? She wasn't showing any said anything. Here's run all cells. And
It's
there's
still-
no
We can't see your screen.
Yeah, it's still not sharing. It just,
I'm sharing my entire screen.
It says has started to share, but it hasn't shown.
Okay. Let's try. I'll pick the exact screen I want to share. Now, can you see it?
No. We see it saying you start sharing your screen. We just don't see anything.
Oh, I wonder if this is gonna
Crazy.
come up on the video or not. That's so strange. I don't know what to do because it says, like now it's telling me if I don't want to share anymore, stop sharing. So
Yeah, at
Weird.
the top, it said you are viewing Kelly's screen, but right in the middle of the screen, it said you're started to share, but it never came up.
you could turn off maybe your camera and see if it's a bandwidth issue.
Yeah,
Oh.
are you on Wi-Fi, Kelly?
yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen problems with that before.
Okay, I turned off my camera. Did that help?
No,
Okay.
sorry.
We try it.
Let's try one other thing then, because I'm on. So because of my Zoom issues, I'm logged in via my browser, and it doesn't like to let me.
As long as you're signed in with a desktop app, it shouldn't matter.
Yeah, and I've done it before with you guys, and it.
Would you be able to
didn't-
take some screenshots and just post them with the
Yeah.
the video?
It was sharing earlier. It's just not sharing
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
One sec, I'm going to switch to the regular. Okay, I just switched to regular Zoom app. So now I'm sharing in Zoom,
Yep.
not my browser.
Yeah, looks nice.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay. So all I was saying, third time's a charm. Moving the cells, copying a cell, deleting a cell, adding one above or below. And if you want to make it a markdown cell, you can click here and change it to markdown and then type normally. This is a code cell, so you can see up here. And then what was the other thing? Oh, to run it. There's no hotkeys for run all cells. So I don't know if someone's clever enough to figure out how to add hotkeys. I'm sure you can if you go into settings or something. But if you want to run just your cell, then you can control enter, and then it will run it and it won't advance. So that's all I was trying to show you.
Okay.
And then
Thank you. That
Yeah.
was great.
yep, and then if you didn't catch it before, to get the HTML, you just come down here to save and export as HTML, and that's it. You don't have to do anything else, and then you can see the file. It looks exactly like the markdown works exactly the same. It looks exactly like markdown in terms of the HTML output. So Okay. Sorry about that.
With the turning that in, did you want to see both the Python script and the
No,
Excel as well?
if you try to turn in anything other than an HTML or an Excel file, it will reject your submission. So
Okay.
yeah, I spent too much time sending emails reminding people not to give me their R Markdown files that I ended up just going in and making it restricted submission file types. So that should eliminate that problem going forward. So only HTML and Excel files. I don't need the script. I can see your code when it prints to HTML. So.
Okay.
Anything else?
I think that's it from me. Thank you, Kelly.
Just anything that you want to show us.
You know, for this week, no, maybe in later weeks, but one sec, I gotta try. Wait a second. Yeah, this week's pretty straightforward, so no, but maybe maybe in later weeks we'll get more advanced, and feel free to send me something ahead of time if you want, like, hey, I found this topic really interesting, I want to talk more about it, and then I can prepare ahead of time too. So
That
yeah,
sounds great.
and I'll send that article. I don't know who was on when I was talking to Rocky, but I'm in a doctorate Python class right now, so I had to read an article about R versus Python, and it was pretty interesting. So I'll share that as well if you want to read it. It's just a few pages long. So
Yes, definitely. It sounds interesting.
Yeah.
okay, well, if you guys don't have any more questions, then I'll let you go.
Okay. Thank
Well,
you
thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.